America is the largest economy in the world, and it's actually larger than our three next competitors. And we got there through choice, competition, and freedom, not by the government running everything. And when you go to other countries, you come back to the United States, and you know that America ultimately will be okay. We'll have a sound economy. We may have challenges, but we'll confront them and we'll beat them. A famous investor once said, "I can make money no matter what the rules are. I just need to know the rules." In the wake of this recession, which was brought on by Wall Street excesses and government incompetency, the American people have not asked for a bailout or special favors or for more government programs, and they certainly have not been clamoring for higher taxes. They've asked for two things: for the government to stop making things worse, and for some semblance of economic certainty. They need to know what the rules are. Instead, what we've been given is a bloated bureaucracy, more government control, and still more uncertainty. In response to the greatest financial crisis this country has witnessed since the Great Depression, many of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle have decided that the answer was not to identify the causes and fix them or to identify where government and the regulators failed. No, they decided that the solution was to draft 2,300 pages of legislation directing the same regulatory agencies that missed the crisis to come up with literally hundreds of new federal regulations on top of those already in existence, and empower a new generation of bureaucrats to exercise command and control over the economy for years to come. In fact, I talked to bankers back in Alabama, and they say if the regulators would get out of my bank, I could do a better job of stabilizing the mess. With the recent release of proposed international capital standards by the Basel Committee in Switzerland, yet another element of uncertainty has been added. We can all agree that banks in the U.S. and overseas held insufficient capital to withstand the financial panic that struck the global economy in late 2008. Indeed, I pointed out when Secretary Paulson first unveiled the original TARP proposal that the major challenge the banks were facing at the time was a shortage of capital, not a toxic asset problem. But higher capital standards alone will not provide the stability our financial system requires to support a full economic recovery and the prosperity of our citizens' need and demand, and for job creation. Over-reliance on increased capital involves a trade-off that every member of this committee needs to consider. Higher capital standards means less credit. Less credit means fewer jobs and less economic growth. We need to make sure the standards we adopt really do make the financial system more resilient without needlessly sacrificing more jobs. But on to something as important as this: the administration's failed once again to give the Americans the certainty they need. We don't know how much new capital our banks will need to raise. We don't know how many loans they will call in to meet those standards. We don't know how many businesses and consumers will be denied credit so that the banks can comply with Basel III. And the reason we don't know is that we're still trying to figure out how the administration is going to implement the new standards and how those new standards will interact with Dodd-Frank. Until those questions are answered, it's impossible to say whether the Basel process will yield a more sustainable global banking system or instead serve as yet another obstacle to economic recovery. Because this is likely to be the last opportunity this committee has to hear from the Secretary, I hope he can provide some certainty for our markets, our businesses, our citizens, and for those citizens who need jobs. And our country desperately needs all answers to all those questions. I thank the Secretary for being here. Yield back the balance of my time.